I'll bet you there's a lot of people listening right now that are watching this that are fans of Jordan Peterson, and maybe they haven't gone too far into what he has taught and say, well, you know, I read his stuff and it seems really great, and I don't know what's wrong with it. And those people might not even realize that some stuff they read is pretty toxic. He talks a lot about gender roles. Do you have anything to say about what Jordan Peterson says about gender roles?
You know, it's so funny. I do have a couple of things. His biggest thing is that he wants to convince his listeners that he is an expert on everything. I mean, I imagine we all saw the Joe Rogan interview recently where he talked about the climate. He's not a climate scientist. Why are you talking about climate? Yeah. That's not your area of expertise. Same goes for relationships. His history, he studied alcoholism, hereditary alcoholism for the large majority of his career. And then he moved on to a very well-known phenomenon in psychology called the Big Five personality traits. I forget what they are. It's like extroversion, neuroticism, a couple of other things like that. Loosely, adjacently, he looked at some things like gender roles, probably a study here or there where somebody looked at close relationships, but he's not an expert on that. And there are ways of uncovering that really only an academic could put their finger on. So for example, he's got over 100, you talk about a guy with a ton of publications, over 100 publications, but over the course of the last 8 years, he's only got 1 or 2 publications in which he was the first author. When you're the first author, that's a big deal. It means it's your program of research. He hasn't first authored anything in years. He's just essentially jumping on the backs of his grad students who want the name recognition of publishing with him, not doing very much work, and you know, throwing his name on there to make it look like he's very accomplished and published. And this is a grift. This is all part of a grift. So therefore, his opinion is not an expert. He's not speaking as an expert. He's just speaking as an individual. And Jordan Peterson, the jerk who doesn't know what he's talking about, it's like that Venn diagram is a circle for the people who follow him. And it's not necessarily their fault. They're victims of his grift. So, you know, if you appreciate what he has to say, the first thing that you need to ask yourself is, I wonder where he got that information from. That will take you to where you need to go to understand that he's mostly full of shit.
One thing that I notice that he talks about a lot is that this idea of like chaos and how women are chaos. What is that? Where has he researched this?
So he hasn't. This is classic red pill language. So I'm glad you brought it up, because this idea of we are immersed in chaos, like that is red pill philosophy 101. It is, the world is crazy. You are smart. You are special, right? You understand the world. You're living in this chaos, but you have the ability to understand it. And what we must understand is, and then, you know, whatever misogynistic trope he wants to throw in, that's how you get that's how he peppers it in so that you don't get fully, like, you know, indoctrinated. But, you know, and he is the catalyst for this pipeline that takes you down the road of red pill. It starts with, oh, well, that's a really good point. And then the next thing you know, you're calling people like a beta male, which, by the way, I love the ironic name of the podcast. I love the ironic title of this episode. It's very, very Ben Shapiro. I love it.
Thank you.
But that's how it starts. You know, it's like Rome wasn't built in a day. Like the incel community did not just pop out of nowhere. It was a very slow indoctrination process.